Welcome back, everyone, to Random's Thoughts. We're jumping into another high-level ladder breakdown, this time between Aliengineer and Hypereat here on Exponential Decay. Let's see what they have in store for us. All right, as mentioned, we're zoning into Exponential Decay, and just throwing it out there at the beginning, I am, of course, part of the content affiliate program, so I do get some compensation from the Phobies team. Just got to get that in there, and of course, we also have to get in likes and subscribes. That map is back, by the way, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about likes and subscribes here on YouTube. They definitely help. Or come by the live stream, RTChompGG, over on Twitch. That and the link for my Discord in the video description. Without further ado, let's jump in and see what these players did on this particular map. So Aliengineer is starting off with a variation of the standard opener. Normally you see this murder wing into one drop opener from the first player. In this case, it's Snowball. I haven't been a huge fan of it, but we'll have to see why. Maybe there's going to be something in store for us here, but this does lead to a early 3-to-1 panic point advantage. This is a good reason to do it. You get this middle panic point cap. Your opponent can't really reclaim it safely or effectively. Now, they could cap the middle, maybe threaten something, because you don't threaten this top point, which is the disadvantage. Having the murder wing available means that you can actually threaten your opponent's points, which can cause some other stuff to happen. What other stuff? We've all played a few games on that. I won't go too far into it at the moment. But in the meantime, we're getting follow-up Gin Sting and Stabby. So this is deviation number one that I would say is major. Going with Snowball over Murder Wing, okay, I get it. A little more mobility, possibly a little more damage, unlikely. I mean, you know, it depends on the levels, of course. Like I was saying, doesn't allow for the caps down here in the corners, or the back caps down the corners, but you do get the good boy running around. The Hevo follow-up also makes sense. It's a lobber on this map. It's super tanky. In this case, Aliengineers is level 10. Great, you threaten the middle. You could also hypothetically threaten this murder wing that Hypereat is represented. But instead, Hypereat has gone for Gin Sting and Stabby. Now, the Gin Sting, sure. The Stabby's a little weird. I'm not a fan of turrets on this map. You can't really cover multiple points. If you do, you know, it would have to be here north. Well, that wouldn't even do it because it's 1-2. You can't cover 2 points with the turrets. That being said, it is a level 11 Stabby. It's fairly tanky. It's going to push a significant amount of damage. And of course, the displacement represents a big threat. Your opponent has to jump through some hoops to kill it. So we'll see where this Stabby goes. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan, but maybe this is something I should be adding to my arsenal on this map. Again, we're looking at these higher ranked players' games because we want to learn stuff. It's always important to be learning. So, the follow-up from Aliengineer is Gin Sting plus Bank. Makes sense. The threat down here between Hevo, Snowball, and Cat means that the Murder Wing can't go in. So still a 3-to-2 panic point advantage for our blue player. Now from here, we're getting a Hevo to match. Is this same level Hevo? Still getting the marching Hevo, but I can't click on it. Level 10. So now we're just jockeying for position. One thing to point out here, and I'll call it out because I tend to do this, or tend to call it out for players, but I want to make sure that we draw special attention to it here because you're seeing among the best players in the game. I think at the time of this recording, Hypereat is number 11 on the ladder, and Aliengineer is number 2. So we're talking about people that, and they are both consistently at the top of the ladder. We know that they are strong players. So learning from them, from either their mistakes or their well-thought-out strategies is important. This seemingly minor thing of not sending in the one-drops is important. If either player sends it in, I mean, obviously there's no reason for Aliengineer, but say Hypereat sends this in, it's just going to die trivially, and then the Cat back caps, and then we're back at the same position, forcing Hypereat to invest further keys. This means that you're hemorrhaging board position and not really getting anything for it, because it's going to die for free. Woohoo, you get like 200 damage on something. Who cares? In fact, the Cat could kill it and then get pulled onto the spot, and great. Now, that being said, it looks like Hypereat is going in, 3-to-2 panic point advantage, and it's a little odd because they are banking to 10. There is no follow-up here. It does stem the bleeding, though. So despite everything I was just saying, If Hypereat wants to preserve a certain life total, they're feeling a little uncomfortable. Right now it's 9165 to 7755. This isn't a huge amount of damage, so I wouldn't be too concerned, but as you can see, the Crushmore softens it up so that way the cat can finish off the Bachelor, reclaim the point. This positioning is interesting. I do appreciate the Crushmore breaking this. It just frees up a lot of movement for you as the blue player. But clearly we see the dead cat coming down, and we get the boss. The big boss man himself. Chat was talking about it because, of course, we're doing this live on my Twitch stream. Chat was talking about how Snowball is, in fact... we'll come back to this. But Snowball is, in fact, Boss's good boy. It's kind of fitting, right? It would be weird if it was, like, Jeeves' pet or something, or Rocket Man's. That would be weird. But anyway, we get the Brony, a Aliengineer signature here, to a degree. Now, there are a few things, well, a thing in play here on Hypereat's side, namely, the boss can still do its ability and then set the fire tiles, even though it won't do damage, and then still push damage through the Brony power down. But this is going to be very difficult. So we do see the hit, or a lot of hits, going down on this Brony. Now remember, we did watch a Brony game earlier on the live stream, but Brony, you can't body block with your Phobies. It still has line of sight, as opposed to line of targeting. So it's going to go down here, it's going to wrap around, power down this Murder Wing, power down this, it's going to power down the boss, and the Hevo. So only the Jin Stings are exempt, except it's not only the Jin Stings that are exempt. All of these are immune. They had to back off for half a turn, but they're basically back in position now. And then we get the follow-up Mr. Tramples. Truthfully, at a little past the halfway point in this game, this looks brutally awful for our orange player. Like, they have to completely back off. They do have a panic point advantage temporarily, but that is not going to last very long. Admittedly, Aliengineer will have to commit something of value. So this is what I was talking about. Despite the 0 damage here, as you can see at the bottom, it's not showing on the card, but down here. 0 damage thanks to the Brony. You are still able to hit your fired, which means that all of these tiles are going to be ignited, including the panic point itself. Now, that being said, you still have to respect the Mr. Tramples coming through, among other things. Brony, if you know how to use it, is broken. Brony is real good, but you know what's also real good? Hevo 3.0. I've heard some things. So we get the pot shot going down here on Jin Sting, 3-2 panic point advantage, orange player. But the Hevo's in position to really put a hurt on a variety of different things. In order for Aliengineer to really follow up this Brony, you need to bring everything in clustered. Unfortunately for Hypereat, Jin Sting does pay with its life, but that means that Mr. Tramples and Jin Sting here are likely to get tagged by this Hevo. So the question becomes here, what is the positioning that you want to have? What is the out? Because you could argue that blue player is winning. They have more Phobies. They're going to have more Phobies online much sooner. Can't click on this Hevo because the Brony's going to wear off as compared to the power down that's still present. But they're able to build this positional advantage, and of course, this Mr. Tramples is ready to plow through a whole bunch of things. So we'll have to see where they position. There's a few different ways that you could do this now that the spider is threatening. By the way, 1 key left for our blue player. Basically, you could pull everything back. This is actually really cool. This is a heads-up play. Again, I don't know that it was actually necessary unless this was just to overwrite the fire, which wasn't necessary either. Dealing no damage with boss, but boss does have a baseline fire damage that's applied on its attack. That bypasses Brony's effect. So we get the retreat here. This is presumably to ensure that no spider shenanigans happen. And then we get a follow-up Cyclops, 3 keys remaining, and a Clinico is the final phobie. So at this stage, pretty much everything is safe with the exception of... I can't click on this. Well, the Snowball's dead, so everything's safe. I was going to say the Snowball could fireball the Murder Wing, but no, that's actually not possible. Because it's... all dogs go to heaven. Even snowballs. So now we're getting this big standoff. But Brony, who's looking super creepy right now. Brony has 3 turns left on the cooldown. This would actually be a cool thumbnail for this, because, like, look at this. The forces are perfectly, almost perfectly lined up here. Anyway, so Stabby's going in, getting ready for the siege. This is kind of bold. You are taking a big chance. Obviously, something's getting yoinked. It's only a question of what and whether it can die. I have to imagine Hypereat counted this up and is willing to sacrifice whatever it is, because the Hevo likely can't... Whoa, really? We're just getting a big retreat. It looks like Aliengineer is willing to wait in order to set up the Brony turn. So you could yoink the Hevo to here, get like 1, 2, 3 hits. Yeah, there's no way that this is dying, because you're only going to deal 7, 12, and change. 16, maybe 17 to it, and then you just basically lose everything. You could yoink the Stabby. Probably not worth it. You could yoink the Hevo. You could get one thing, and then you probably lose 1.5 Phobies as Aliengineer. So this retreat makes more sense the more I look at it. Because if you go in with the Spider, you can only get these 3 Phobies, and like I said, none of them are either going to result in a death for the opposing Phobie, or it's going to put you in an unfortunate position. So we get the invade here, with Brony's clock ticking. Still one more turn. Aliengineer could try and play this super patient, but the problem is that boss is not going to let you, because next turn it's going in with your fired, and all of that damage is live. All the damage is in now. So 4-1 panic point advantage, although that doesn't really matter, is really going to come down to the Phobies here. Or should. So we see a bunch of damage going down onto Cyclops. I'm surprised that the Mr. Tramples ended turn there, as opposed to up here. Because then it would... well, it could get hit by this regardless, I guess. I guess it doesn't matter. So Cyclops goes down. Pulling the Crushmore out of position matters. It also pushes it into a more reasonable damage threshold. I have to imagine between the 2 fire effects that ultimately Hypereat's able to eliminate these 2. Or close to it. Because we get the lob here. At this point, Aliengineer's entire offensive is broken. This, I think, is the game. This turn right here. This choice to go in as Aliengineer, I understand. And maybe there was no alternative. Like, could you have retreated further? The only way you retreat further is you have to, like, bring everything back. 1, 2, 3. And even then, you're probably going to lose the Jin Sting anyway, which I guess is the choice here that, like, okay, I'll lose the Jin Sting, we'll get the Cyclops. But I think your only way back in this, given the retreat that already happened, is to try and make a Brony hit happen. Ultimately, that initial Brony hit didn't seem to really garner Aliengineer the advantage that was required. So we saw these turns, that's why I'm skipping back ahead. So we left it here. We do get a power down, it looks like, but boss is still live. Boss is still live, and I mean Clinico is too, for all that matters. Mr. Tramples is trying to get the hell out of dodge. But your fired is still available. Your fired is still available. Four to 1 panic point advantage once again. Oh, and by the way, Hevo also still does its fire thing. Mr. Tramples moved to the heart after Brony effect. Oops, yep. Honestly, I think Aliengineer probably saw the writing on the wall here. Because look at this position. You just don't have anything. It's like this Hevo versus everything, I guess. Because this is doing no damage. The spider can walk up and poison this. Okay, that's salient. This can come back. Basically, the Hevo's going to die if it stays. And if it goes away, you accomplish nothing. And it's a 4-to-1 panic point advantage with stuff on the points. So, like, tramples can go up here and cap it. This game was over. This game was over. So we'll zone back in and see, like, where did it actually go wrong? Maybe something could happen if Aliengineer was a little more patient. I think that's possible, Onda, but I want to see... So for the most part, it felt like Aliengineer was in the driver's seat for most of this game. But ultimately, this Brony hit, what's funny about this is it felt like Hypereat just said, yeah, Brony me. Brony me, bro. I want to see it happen. And then it ended up, when it happened, this entire Brony exchange, what did it get Aliengineer? So this is the board state post-Brony effect. It yielded a 3-to-2 panic point advantage and arguably a good board position. The problem is Brony is dead. Like, not literally dead, but Brony is dead weight at this point. You have one key left. You need, with these 5 Phobies, one of which is not a damage dealer, it's really just utility, need to somehow get through these 2 Phobies. Essentially, I think Hypereat set this up pretty well, where the push, or the retreat from Aliengineer, because of the Brony, like, they had to pull back to make sure their stuff wasn't Bronied, but that meant that... I actually have to go back a couple more turns. You back off, and then you don't get anything out of it. Like, this Brony was not great. Was the game over? Probably not. Probably not. But I don't think, as I was starting out saying, I felt like Aliengineer was in the driver's seat the whole time, and then... I thought this was a continuation of that. It would appear not. So I think this was also a minor mistake. Like, there's no point in having this here because of the You're Fired effect. Probably felt minor at the time, but definitely softened these things up. Now, the second mistake comes later on here. And this turn we did talk about in the initial breakdown, but this felt like it was also tripling. And chat's also saying, going after the Cyclops here, because ultimately, it's like, yes, you kill the Cyclops, but you're trading 10 keys for 5. Because at the end of the follow-up turn, these are gone. And now it's like, there's just no way. You can't. And that's why I agree with chat. Maybe if Aliengineer, and I was saying this during the game, had pulled back further on this turn, maybe you survive. The problem is if you do that, I don't know if you can actually win the game, because an invade still yields a dead Jin Sting. You have You're Fired. All your stuff is going to be bunched. I think if they pull back and have to go here, maybe they run to the south, but then they get AoE'd down by Hevo. It's a rough spot. It's a rough spot. Basically, it feels as though the Brony was not a good call. The Brony felt like it might, and the requirements of the Brony. So maybe not the Brony literally itself, but the fact that you had to jump through so many hoops in order to make the Brony work, or try to work, I think ultimately resulted in the loss of this game. There were positioning mistakes. Obviously, this dive on this turn didn't work out, but I don't know that it was necessarily any of those factors more than the Brony itself. That being said, let me know down in the comments if you feel differently or what you think could have gone differently in order for Aliengineer to take this game. GG to both players, but that's going to do it for this particular breakdown. Let me know if you want to see more of these or what other content you want to see for Phobies. As always, everybody, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and Black Lives Matter.